Hey friends, Lindbergh, your bad couch guru with the Health and Fitness Motivation Podcast. And I have back with us today, Ari Gronich. We had him here about a week ago talking about, this Ari has so many fabulous topics, but I wanted to bring him here on two. We talked a week ago about test, don't guess. If you didn't get that episode, go back and listen to it. But today he's going to talk about a topic we've never directly addressed on here called emotional release. And don't let that scare you. It's actually really cool. So first of all, Ari, welcome back to the podcast again. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ari, I got to tell you something about the topic of emotional release that I didn't tell you when we were talking earlier is a couple of years ago, I had a chance to go to a wellness retreat center and spend a week there as a fitness influencer. And when I got there, I had decided that I was going to try every single service they had. And so I got the brochure and I'm like, oh, massage, no problem. I can do that. Exercise classes, great. The cupping where they do the little medi cupping. I'm like, sure, no problem. And then there's one where I was like, fuck. And it was like, as the emotional release, because I knew I had baggage and I was like, okay, this is so woo woo. This is so like, light the candles, turn on the music. And I'm kind of woo woo, but not really. I got to tell you, Ari, that was the most valuable hour of my entire week there. And it left me feeling like a rock star. It left me feeling ready to face the world in a better way than I'd ever been before. And so, Ari, I'd love for you to just let our folks know what the heck is this whole thing, and as if people had never heard of it before.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody probably has heard of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
Now, here's my question to the audience. Is there a trauma in your life that you have no idea happened that is running your life? And if so, cognitive behavioral therapy won't get to it. And if there is something running your life that's been a trauma and you know about it and you haven't healed it, is it because you're cognitively aware of it, of this bad behavior, so to speak? And my assertion is, and this is after years of me being therapized and going to classes and doing all of the work, but my experience is that cognitive behavioral therapy is not going to work long-term, lifelong, and quickly. And here's why. Because we tend to know that our behavior is bad, yet we still continue that behavior. It's like smoking. Mm-hmm. You can't just cognitively change that behavior. Mm-hmm. Smoking is bad. You don't like the smell. Most people who smoke don't even enjoy it, after a while, but they cannot stop that behavior. It's cognitively not happening. The issues are in the tissues.
Oh, I like that. Issues are in the tissues.
Yeah, the issues are in the tissues. Somatic trauma requires somatic treatment and therapy. If you have an experience that traumatizes you, guess what you have to do? Relive that experience in your body, but in a safe way. So I'll give you an example, and this is going to be probably the most controversial example.
Okay, go for it.
Okay,
go for it.
Sexual abuse, right? So talking about sexual abuse is not, in my opinion, going to do anything other than give you an ability to receive sympathy and maybe some empathy, but you're constantly reliving that trauma. Same story, that same trauma. Now, go to, let's say, a tantra therapist, somebody who does, or a sexual intimacy therapist, somebody who does on the body physical work. You're going to get the trauma out of the tissue. It's not fun. It's not easy. It requires noise, usually screaming or laughing or crying or whatever, vibration, vocalizing, right? It requires a lot of stuff. That's receiving therapy from somebody else. So that's one way to get deep emotional release body work, right? But in my opinion, every issue has some place in the body. And I'll give you a quick thing about that. So in Chinese medicine, all your organs are related to emotions. So your liver is related to anger. Your kidneys are related to worry. Your lungs are related to joy. If you're not inspired, you're exasperated, right?
Yeah.
So you're not breathing. That's where that lives. If you're anxious, you stop breathing. You hold it in your body. It's not held in your mind. It's held in your body. And we tend to re-trigger constantly trauma after trauma after trauma. So we have an incident where somebody cuts us off on the road, but that doesn't happen just once. So we don't let it go just the one time. Oh, okay, that happened. Now it's gone. 5 minutes later, we're fine. It's going to happen again. And then it's going to happen again. And we start building these traumas up in our system, holding them on, and they create what I call garbage dumps in our body, where the energy moves out and you're just kind of dead in that spot, that area. And so you've got to get to a place where somebody is in a very safe way holding the space for you to release that while triggering with trigger point or massage or whatever those spots in the body. That's one way of doing it. The thing that we talked about earlier, one of my favorite self-care ways to do that is mirror work. And mirror work is, for most people, probably one of the most uncomfortable things that they could possibly do in a room by themselves. And, you know, it's simple. You get naked, you stare in a mirror, and you find everything that you love about yourself.
That's the hard work right there.
You're not trying to fix anything that you think might be broken. You're literally not, there's nothing to fix. You're not broken. You're covered in traumatic masks. So masks of trauma that create inauthenticity in how we be around people and around each other. And so the first thing that you have to do is be okay with who you are, yourself, by yourself, alone, with nobody else there. And I'll give you, again, I like to tell stories a little bit and give examples. So I'm divorced, 2 years, little over 2 years divorced. The trauma that I experienced at the point at which the separation occurred was massive. It was not I didn't know it was happening.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way, right? It was traumatic. So I get home, my house has got nothing in it, right? Like, I mean, my stuff, but none of my the other stuff. And it was traumatic. And I love my wife, and I was like, okay, I'm not happy. And I literally spent about 300 hours wailing and crying and staring into a mirror and suicidal. And I mean, I've had 28 friends commit suicide in my life. It's always been a thing in my past. Another thing, maybe your audience has had some of these kinds of feelings, especially when they're in pain chronically all the time, or have had traumas, right? But I got to a place where I'm staring in that mirror going, either freaking do it. I didn't say freaking, I said a little bit deeper. Either freaking do it or shut up about it already. I'm tired of having this in my space. And I mean, this was after like 2 years, this massive screaming, wailing, uncomfortable, painful. This is not a thing that people are going to want to do. Right?
No.
But here's the deal. If you do it, write in your journal how you feel the next day when you wake up. And then 2 or 3 or 5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And then do it again. Like do this often, every day. When you get out of the shower, take a few minutes to appreciate yourself and tear off this trauma that we've, been covering ourselves with. So we're just unmasking.
I love it.
We're taking the masks off.
Wow.
The masks of trauma are causing our society to have such amazingly traumatic lives.
Yes.
And it's so avoidable.
Yeah.
Be you. There's a place for you to be you. I've had to learn this because I grew up being bullied and being traumatized and being treated like it was bad thing that I even dared to be alive. That was how I was treated growing up. And you can either take that kind of abuse and trauma and you internalize it into your body, which I did for a long, long time. I was 340 pounds. I was told by my doctors I would never lose weight because of the tumor. But guess what? After about 2 years of screaming and crying, you lose a little bit of weight.
Wow.
Go figure. I don't know how that works. Maybe you shed the trauma that your body is holding on to. And so it doesn't need to have the capacity to hold on to it anymore. And so you can get healthier and shrink. Maybe your entire being becomes lighter and easier and more in flow when you take away the initial pain, which came from the emotional trauma.
Wow.
Not from what you ate, not from those other things. Those are still there, like we talked about last week.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
You still got to do the work on that. But the very important work, the most important work, is to work on yourself. Jim Rohn is funny. He says something. Jim Rohn was the guy who was Tony Robbins' mentor, but way back in the day. And he says, if you only work harder on yourself than on your business, you'll make it's the different. Let's see. Hold on a second. It's the difference between making a living and making a life.
Yep.
Right.
Wow. And Ari, your story of emotional release and mirror work. Wow. That was deeper than I expected. Thank you. Mine was amazing and great, but nothing quite that deep. So thank you for sharing that story. Whew. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
Yeah. I people feel no hope.
Yeah.
Because they feel like the things that they've experienced are unique.
Yeah.
And while the responses are unique to the individual, the situations are not. And what I've found is you can't say to somebody, well, I healed, so you can heal. Like, I healed, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right? Just because I did it does not mean you can do it. It means that there's a possibility that surrounds you. And that possibility is that the possibility that you can be free.
Yeah.
And you just got to choose it.
Yeah. Got to choose it and take that first step.
But also your audience is lucky because they have you to be a resource, right? That's the other thing that people need is the resource. How do people find resources for this kind of thing? And the truth is it's so hard to find good help these days. It's like, where do you go? Do you go to Dr. Google? Do you go to friends who go to one person that they've always gone to and they say, I have the best, but they've never been to anybody else?
Oh, trust me. Trust me. Yeah. And as you know, with your own issues, everybody's got a solution for you for sure. So
everybody's got a solution. Here's my tip for your audience. Don't go to anybody who's got a solution. Go to people who have questions.
That's wonderful.
The more questions that the practitioner asks you, the better.
Yeah.
If somebody comes and says, I can help you, I don't know what you got, but I can help you, I know everything.
Yeah. That's a problem.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
You want somebody who's got more questions than
Mm-hmm.
solutions, because if they ask you enough questions, all of a sudden you're going to get somebody who's creating a safe place for you to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's the key, both in the physical health and the mental health and the emotional health and the spiritual
Mm-hmm.
health, is having the community, the people who give you a safe place to be you
Yeah.
and to learn and to
Yeah,
heal.
that compassionate space so much. So Ari, if folks want to learn more about either mirror work or emotional release, what's their first step?
Yeah, so you can go, type in somatic emotional release bodywork. There's not a lot of practitioners, but there are some
Mm-hmm.
around. I'm doing something these days a little more controversial and a little more, you know, well, controversial.
Okay.
I would say, there's been a big push these days on psychedelics and
Oh,
therapy,
okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and um, I basically say, okay, that you're still talking a lot, and talking is not going to get the issues. So I started doing, and a long time ago, I started doing this kind of work, but body therapy with the psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've experienced, what my clients and people have experienced, the overwhelming consideration is that nothing that they've done has been that powerful ever. None of everybody I've worked on has been to 100 other people, gone through 100 different modalities of
Mm-hmm.
therapy. When you combine the lack of cognitive
Yep.
tie to the emotional response, which is what the psychedelic
Yep.
allows for to happen, combined with the body work that's getting into the somatic tissue,
Mm-hmm.
combined with that woo woo ritual,
Mm-hmm.
right? The woo woo becomes wow.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, you have people who grow up,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
and it's fascinating when you say it's controversial. I would say it's on a similar continuum of some other things that we're working on in as a country, and we're seeing a lot more uh, research done through a lot of methodology that people tend to trust more and see.
Right.
And so I really think that in another 5, 10 years, that word psychedelic therapy is no longer going to be as the controversial term.
I hope so. I hope it'll
Yeah.
be absolutely mainstream,
Hmm.
and I hope to be one of the ones training like the majority of therapists
Hmm.
that get to do this kind of work, because, like I said, for me in my life, I've had a massive amount of trauma, but also a massive amount of therapy and
Hmm.
a massive amount of money that I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on therapies and techniques and modalities and all those kinds of things. And nothing cuts to the chase
Hmm.
the same way that this cuts to the
Hmm.
chase. It's like whatever you've been working on for the last 50 years, it just goes right to the surface, clears up, and you see it, you release it with breath work and vibrational work and noise and all that stuff, and it's
Hmm.
gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. And if you stop telling the story, it'll stay
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Keep it out of there. Keep it out of there. Yeah, no, it is. It's fascinating to see. And I really like that there's more and more rigor. So then when it goes out, there can be that trust and confidence of like, oh, okay, this isn't some, Deadhead, Pink Floyd, whatever thing, that those are the
Right.
stereotypes that we have with it, that it's actually something very, very different than that. So
Yeah.
yeah, love it. Well, Ari, it's such a pleasure to meet you, and I feel
Thank
like
you.
we could probably have 10 more conversations like this, but I just so appreciate you taking the time. Uh,
Oh, it's my
yes.
pleasure. And anytime you want to have me on, I'm happy to provide all kinds of tips and tricks. 26 years, I've done pretty much everything in the business. And what's fascinating to me is that I have more questions than I do answers. And the older I get, the more questions that come up, and it's fun because my goal with A New Tomorrow
Yep.
is to help create a new tomorrow today by activating our vision for a better world and helping people to become activated means that they have to get out of the shyness and the trauma of being seen and being worthy.
Yeah.
And if you could get out of the trauma of being seen and being worthy, all of a sudden you could activate yourself to this higher level, in which case a bully may not have the same kind of pull and tie and connection to you because you are aware now.
Yeah.
And if you could be aware, the bully can't get to you. The bully is everywhere. The bully is the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, the systems that we have started that we tend to live by. My favorite saying is, we made this shit up. We can make it up better. Silence is a bully's best friend. So let's get loud and stop the bully. But to do that, we need to have that moment of, I'm looking in a mirror and I'm in love with myself, with what I see and who I am and the contribution that I'm going to make to this world. And then I could start wrapping myself around being part of communities where I may have once felt fearful or scared of being re-traumatized. Now I can, in this safe place, because I'm healed from those traumas, I can now do all the things that I've really wanted to do that's been in my head and in my passion, because I'm not stopped by this false notion that I'm not worthy and that I'm not okay as I am.
Yep. I love that. We talk a lot about just, I am worthy. I'm worthy of health. I'm worthy of an active lifestyle. I'm totally worthy. Okay, Ari, remind listeners, is it createanewtomorrow.com? Is that, I have that correct?
Yeah, createanewtomorrow.com. My corporate site is achievehealthusa.com.
Okay.
And you could reach me on Facebook or Twitter or pretty much anywhere at Ari Gronich.
arigronich.com, and we will have all those links in the show notes so folks can get to know you more. And I'm going to start listening to your podcast. That one's a new one to me. So awesome. All right. Well, Ari, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you would like help getting into shape or getting your food on your plate dialed in, head on over to couch2active.com and schedule a session with me. That's couch2active.com.